Shalom, everyone. Today we are continuing on in the series, The Parable of the Sower. We'll be doing part 2, The Seed That Fell by the Wayside. Looking at the seed that fell by the wayside, in Mark 4, verse 4, we read, "And it came to be, as he sowed, some fell by the wayside, and the birds of the Shemaim came and devoured it." Mark 4:15, "These then are the ones by the wayside, where the word is sown. And when they hear, Hasatan comes immediately and takes away the word that was sown in their hearts." In Matthew 13, we get a little more information at verse 19. "When anyone hears the word of the reign and does not understand it, then the wicked one comes and snatches away that which was sown in his heart." And at Luke 8, verse 5, we see that this seed that was sown by the wayside was trodden down. So let's take a look at some of these descriptions of the seed that was sown by the wayside. So first, let's take a look at the word by. We know in our English vernacular that fall by the wayside means that people stop doing, using, or making something. In the Greek, it's Strong's 3844, para, a primary preposition, properly near, that is, with genitive case, from beside, literally or figuratively, with dative case, at or in the vicinity of, objectively or subjectively with accusative case, to the proximity with, local, especially beyond or opposed to, or casual on account of. So we see that this word by can mean beyond or opposed to something. Maybe that's why it falls by the wayside. In Merriam-Webster's, we see that by the wayside is out of consideration, into a condition of neglect or disuse, usually used with fall. So now that we've seen by the wayside could be neglect or disuse, and the word by actually means opposed to, let's take a look at the word wayside. It's the Greek 3598. Apparently a primary word, a road, by implication a progress, the route, act, or distance, figuratively a mode or means. Tracing it back in the Apostolic Bible Polyglot, it goes to Genesis 3:24, and we can see there it's the way, Hebrew 1870, Derek from 1869, a road as trodden, figuratively a course of life or mode of action, often adverbally. Going back and reading Genesis 3:24, we see that it says, "So he drove out the man, and he placed at the east of the Garden of Eden cherubims, and a flaming sword which turned every way to keep the way of the tree of life." So we can see in this first use of the word way that it is the way back to the tree of life. It's currently being guarded. Looking at Derek in the ancient Hebrew lexicon, we see it is at number 2112N. At the N, it's a road that is walked, as well as the path of life. At the 2112, we see it's a dal, a resh, and a kaf. The action is to tread the concrete as road, from the resh het as a path. So we see that we have the dal, which is a door, move, open, enter, back and forth, hinge. We have the resh, which is the head of man, first, top, beginning, person, think. And we have the kaf, which is the palm. Bend, allow, tame, cover, open, bless, offer. So we see the seed that falls by the wayside is adamantly opposed to entering through the door, who would be Yeshua Messiah, adamantly opposed to striving to enter that door, adamantly opposed to accepting him as the head of man, adamantly opposed to taming themselves to what the word truly says. And they're also adamantly opposed to accept the offering that he has given us so that we can make our way back to the tree of life. Not only are they opposed to it for themselves, but they are opposed to anyone else out there that might find the way. John 14, verses 1 to 7. Let not your heart be troubled. Believe in Elohim, believe also in me. In my Father's house there are many staying places for the priesthood. And if not, I would have told you so. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go to prepare a place for you, I shall come again and receive you to myself, the head of man, because you strove to enter the door and you went through, that where I am, you might be too. And where I go you know, and the way you know. Thomas said to him, Master, we do not know where you are going, and how are we able to know the way? Yeshua said to him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes through the door to the head without accepting the offering and following the word all the way back down the path to the tree of life. No one comes to the Father except through me. If you had known me, you would have known my Father too. From now on you know him and have seen. And this chapter goes on some, and he explains to the taught ones that he is Yahweh, that they are one. Once you have seen that Yeshua is Yahweh, there's no one seeing it again. I would encourage everyone to go read on from this point. Hallelujah. Knowing that the Word is the seed, as we covered in part 1, we see here Yeshua speaking to the Yehudim, the unbelieving Yehudim. Yeshua answered them, Truly, truly, I say to you, everyone doing sin is a servant of sin. And the servant does not stay in the house forever. He's got no place. A son stays forever. If then the Son makes you free, you shall be free indeed. I know that you are the seed of Abraham, but you seek to kill me, because my word, the seed, has no place in you. I speak what I have seen with my Father, and you do what you have heard from your father. They are living by the seed from another house. They have a different head. They answered and said to him, Abraham is our father. Yeshua said to them, If you were Abraham's children, you would do the works of Abraham. But now you seek to kill me, a man who has spoken to you the truth, which I heard from Elohim. Abraham did not do this. You do the works of your father. Then they said to him, We were not born of whoring. We have one Father, Elohim. Yeshua said to them, If Elohim were your father, you would love me, the Word, the seed. You would not be opposed to me. For I came forth from Elohim, because I'm the Word, the seed, and I am here. For I have not come of myself, but he sent me. Why do you not know what I say? Because you are unable to hear my word. Can't understand it. You are not of your father, the devil. You are of your father, the devil. That is who they have as a head. And the desire of your father you wish to do, because they follow his word. He was a murderer from the very beginning, and has not stood in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaks the lie, he speaks of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it, because he twists what was spoken in the word, he twists the seed. He was a murderer from the beginning. He wanted to shed blood just as much then as he wants to shed our blood now in any way he can. Not only us, but the Messiah. And because I speak the truth, you do not believe me. Who of you proves me wrong concerning sin? And if I speak the truth, why do you not believe me? He who is of Elohim hears the word, hears the seed, understands the seed that came from the house of Elohim. Therefore you do not hear, because you are not of Elohim. Adamantly opposed to, striving to enter the door. Adamantly opposed to the head of man who came. Adamantly opposed to taming themselves, and adamantly opposed to the offering that he gave for us. So keep hanging around with these guys that are opposed to Yeshua Messiah. Keep listening to what they have to say. You may believe in him, but because you want their praise more than you want Elohim's. We've seen it before. Still, even among the rulers, many did believe in him. But because of the Pharisees, they did not confess him, lest they should be put out of the congregation. Should that really be our concern? For they loved the praise of men. Should that really be our concern? More than the praise of Elohim. In Acts 4, we have Kepha and Yochanan going toe-to-toe with the rulers of the people, the elders, the scribes, the high priest even being there, for healing a man in the name of Yeshua. And they said, the council. But when they had commanded them to go outside of the council, they consulted with one another, saying, what shall we do to these men? And that is what they will do. If you are striving to enter the door to the head of man, accepting what he's offered and taming yourself to this way that he's laid before us, they're going to try and figure out what to do with you. They're going to try and kill you. They're going to try and stone you. And they're going to try and put you out. For indeed, that an outstanding miracle has been done through them is apparent to all those dwelling in Yerushalayim, and we are unable to deny it. But in order that it spreads no further among the people, let us strongly threaten them to speak no more to anyone in this name. All they could do at that point was strongly threaten them because, and here it is, they were afraid of the people. And they called them and commanded them not to speak at all, nor teach in the name of Yeshua. But Kepha and Yochanan answering them said, and this is how it should be, whether it is right in the sight of Elohim to listen to you more than Elohim, you judge. I think we should all know the answer. For it is impossible for us not to speak of what we saw and heard. Those who are opposed to the true seed will come at you in any way they can. They will use anything they can. But remember, it is right to listen more to Elohim than it is to these men. We shouldn't even be having anything to do with them. Their whole purpose, because they are of their father the devil, is to keep us from getting back to the way to the tree of life. It was his plan since the very beginning, and it is his plan all the way through to the end, to take as many with him as he can into the lake of fire, to the bloodshed at Armageddon, and straight with him into the lake of fire. Revelation 22, verses 1-4. And he showed me a river of water of life, clear as crystal, coming from the throne of Elohim and of the Lamb. In the middle of its street and on either side of the river was the tree of life. That's where we are making our way back to, which bore 12 fruits, each tree yielding its fruit every month. And the leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations. And no longer shall there be any curse. And the throne of Elohim and of the Lamb shall be in it, and his servants shall serve him. Those who allowed the word to be planted on good soil and did not fall for the tricks of the adversary coming from those that are adamantly opposed to him. And they shall see his face, and his name shall be upon their foreheads. Now let's get some confirmation from the parable itself. Luke 8, verse 5. And a sower went out to sow his seed. And as he sowed, some fell by the wayside, and it was trodden down, Greek 26:62, and the fowls of the air devoured it. So we see that this seed was trodden down. Let's look and see if this gives us further confirmation. Again, Strong's Greek 26:62, from 2596 and 3961, to trample down, figuratively to reject with disdain. It's maybe opposed to, maybe even hate. If we trace it back in the Apostolic Bible Polyglot, we find it at Psalm 91:13. Thou shalt tread upon the lion and adder, the young lion and the dragon, thou shalt trample under feet. We should be doing the trampling. Psalm 7, verse 5. Let the enemy persecute my soul and take it. Yea, let him tread down my life upon the earth. and lay my honor in the dust. Selah. So we see in both instances it goes through Hebrew 74:29. Just as a side note, this is also the same Greek word we see for those that trample the blood of the covenant in Hebrews chapter 10. This is bad. Looking at trodden down, we saw that it was reject with disdain. Reject, to throw away, as anything useless or vile. Okay, they consider the Messiah, the word of Elohim, vile to them. Yah, help us. To cast off, to refuse to receive, to slight, to despise. Oh, Yah. Disdain, reject with disdain, to think unworthily, to deem worthless, to consider to be unworthy of notice. Wow. Unworthy of notice, care, regard, esteem, or unworthy of one's character, to scorn, to contemn. In the thesaurus, we see that some synonyms are hate, indifference, arrogance, aversion, contempt, derision, dislike, hatred, pride, ridicule, or scorn. At the Strong's, Hebrew 74:29, it's a primitive root to tread upon, as a potter in walking, or abusively. Abusively, in an abusive manner, rudely or reproachfully. And looking at the reproachfully, in terms of reproach, scuriously, shamefully, disgracefully, contemptuously. They hate the seed that came from the house of Elohim. They want to be their own Elohim. They do not love the word of Yah. They reject it. They hate it. It is disdainful, unworthy to them. These are people we should not be listening to in any way, shape, or form. Because they come from the seed of Edom, the seed of Esau, we know that this springs out further than just the Pharisees and just the Sadducees and just the scribes of that day. All those that are from the seed of Edom, that it lands on this type of ground in their heart, this hard ground, despise and reject the seed. Going back again, looking at our Strongs, we see it's H7429, a primitive root to tread upon, as a potter in walking or abusively. Tracing it back to the ancient Hebrew lexicon, we see it at 2775V. Ramas. Action is to tread, to trample underfoot. It's a resh, a mem, and a sin. The resh is ahead of man, first top beginning think. Mem is water, cleanse, blood, flow, chaos. It's also who, what, when, where, why. A sin is a thorn, protect, grab hold, turn, or hate. The seed that lands by the wayside has landed on hard soil where it can't take any type of root. It is rejected with disdain because it is from Resh, the head of man, because Mem, it cleanses, because it is sin hated. And people don't want to turn from their wicked ways. They love the darkness rather than the light. They love their own power. They love their own praise rather than the mightiness and the praise of Yahweh Elohim. They trample down the true seed. Going back to our parable, looking at it in Matthew 13, where we get more information, we do get a little bit of information from each of the accounts in Mark and Luke and Matthew. Matthew 13:19. And when anyone hears the word of the reign, don't want you to go through the door back to the head, that's for sure, and does not understand it, then the wicked one comes and snatches away what was sown in his heart. This is that which was sown by the wayside. We see this word understand goes back to Isaiah 6:9. Great portion of scripture. And he said, Go and tell this people, hear ye indeed, but understand not, and see ye indeed, but perceive not. We actually see this in our parable in some different verses later on. It goes to Strong's H995. Bene, bin, a primitive root, to separate mentally or distinguish, that is, generally understand. Looking in the 1828 Webster's Dictionary at the word understand, we see a couple of the definitions. To have just and adequate ideas of, to comprehend, to know. These that reject the seed with disdain, that are opposed to him, do not know him. They have no intimate relationship with him. Second definition, to have the same ideas as the person who speaks. When Yeshua spoke, and when we speak the words of Yeshua, the true taught ones, they do not have the same idea of it whatsoever. To have the same ideas as the person who speaks, or the ideas which a person intends to communicate. Here's a fine example they place right here in the dictionary. I understood the preacher. Do we understand our Messiah? Do we understand the words of our Messiah? Do we truly understand the taught ones that are giving us all that the Messiah taught his taught ones when he was here? Obedience, priesthood, blood covering, the language that was originally breathed. Do we understand? Because these ones who reject the seed with disdain and are opposed to it do not understand. My advice is to run from them and take anybody away from them with you when you go. Taking a look at the word understand in the ancient Hebrew lexicon, we see it's at 1037 MV. The V is understand. It's a bait, a yod, and a nun. The M is the action is plan. The abstract is to understand. They've got a whole different plan. They don't understand what ideas that are being presented to them. They're adamantly opposed to it. The tent was usually divided into two parts, one for the females and the other for the male. The wall makes a distinction between the two sides. Understanding as the ability to discern between two or more things. One thing they can understand and one thing they cannot discern is the truth of the seed of Yahweh Elohim and the way to get back to the tree of life. At the 1037 we see it's the beit nun, and we've heard this many times. It's the ben, it's the son, it's the seed that comes from the house. They are not the seed that comes from the house of Yahweh Elohim, because we saw Yeshua tell them, you are children of your father, the devil. Got another seed. Can't understand the seed. The action is build. The concrete is tent panel. The abstract is intelligence. They have got zero of that. The pictograph bait is a picture of the tent. The nun is a picture of a sprouting seed and represents continuity as the seed continues to the next generation. As we know, in the end, their seed will not continue. It will burn in the fire. Let us not be found with these people. The combined meaning of these letters mean the continuing of the house. That's where we want to be. The tent was constructed of woven goat hair. Over time, the sun bleaches and weakens the goat hair, necessitating their continual replacement. Each year, the women make a new panel approximately 3 feet wide and the length of the tent. The old panel is removed, being recycled into the wall or floor, and the new strip is added to the tent. Since the tent is only replaced one small piece at a time, the tent essentially lasts forever. We need to be passing this seed down to those in our own household, those that would be seed from the house of Elohim, so that the house continues. And we need to continue to warn others of those that have no understanding and no intelligence and are not building the house of Yahweh Elohim. We need to warn them lest they be drug away by the murderer. Now let's go to Micah chapter 4, verses 1 through 13. And in the latter days it shall be that the mountain of the house of Yahweh is established on the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and peoples shall flow to it. And many nations shall come and say, Come, let us go up to the mountain of Yahweh, to the house of the Elohim of Jacob, and let him teach us his ways, and let us walk in his paths. For out of Zion comes forth the Torah and the word of Yahweh from Yerushalayim. So we can see we're talking about the millennial reign here, because that is when the people will come up to be taught by the priesthood the ways to follow. Something we should be teaching even now. And he shall judge among many peoples, and reprove strong nations afar off. They shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up a sword against nation, neither teach battle any more. But each one shall sit under his vine and under his fig tree, with no one to make them afraid. For the mouth of Yahweh of hosts has spoken. For all the peoples walk each one in the name of his mighty one, but we walk in the name of Yahweh our Elohim forever and ever. In that day, when the temple is being built, declares Yahweh, I gather the lame, and bring together the outcast, and those whom I have afflicted. And I shall make the lame a remnant, and the outcast a strong nation. And Yahweh shall reign over them in Mount Zion, where the millennial reign is going to take place, from now on and forevermore. And you, O tower of the flock, this flock is in the sense of being ordered, the removal of what is unnecessary to bring about order. And you, O tower of this ordered flock, stronghold of the daughter of Zion, it shall come to you the former rule, the restoration of the Melchizedek order shall come. The priesthood shall be here, the reign of the daughter of Yerushalayim. So now, if we come back to the prophet speaking in his day, and the same thing is happening today. Now why do you cry aloud, he says to the people. Is there no sovereign in you? No, because you're not paying him any attention. You've rejected your king. Has your counselor perished? Is he lost? No, but where are you? For pain has gripped you like a woman in labor. Be in pain and deliver, O daughter of Zion, like a woman in labor. For now you are to leave the city, and you shall dwell in the field. This is us in dispersion. And you shall go to Babel, and there you shall be delivered. There Yahweh shall redeem you from the hand of your enemies. And now many nations shall be gathered together against you. Are they not? Those who are bringing forth the truth of the priesthood, the truth of this order, the truth of the language, the truth of obedience, the truth of the blood of the covenant that Messiah shed. They are gathered against us. They are saying, let her be defiled, and let our eyes look upon Zion. But here's the thing. They do not know the thoughts of Yahweh, nor do they understand his counsel. For he, scriptures has, other versions have shall, gathered them like sheaves to the threshing floor. That day will come. And the daughter of Zion will arise and thresh, for he has made our horn iron and our hoofs bronze. And you shall beat many peoples into pieces, and I shall seclude their gain to Yahweh, and their wealth to the master of all the earth. What was happening then is no different than what is happening now. They are gathered against us. We should be bringing forth this seed and lifting it up for others to see. Yet all they want is to see us defiled. And all they want is to drag us off, to deny Messiah at this point and in this day and in this age, so that we have no part in the first resurrection. They reject the seed with disdain. As a matter of fact, they just as soon eat you alive. John 10, verses 22 to 30. At that time, the Hanukkah came to be in Jerusalem, and it was winter. And Yeshua was walking in the set-apart place, in the porch of Shlomo. So the Yehudim surrounded by him said to him, "How long do you keep us in suspense? If you are the Messiah, say to us plainly." Yeshua answered them, "I have told you, and you do not believe." They did not believe that he was who he said he was. The works that I do in my Father's name, they bear witness concerning me. They didn't believe. The works bore the witness that he did them in his Father's name. They didn't believe that he was who he was. Why? But you do not believe because you are not of my sheep, as I said to you. My sheep hear my voice. They hear my word. They hear the seed that's everything from the El to the Taw. And I know them, and they follow me. And I give them everlasting life. They shall by no means ever perish. They're not lost. They know who their counselor is. Their counselor's not lost. And no one shall snatch them out of my hand. My Father, who has given them to me, is greater than all, and no one is able to snatch them out of my Father's hand. I and my Father are one. So we see here that Yahweh's sheep, Yahweh Shua's sheep, hear his word. They shema his word. His word is planted deep in their hearts. They do not reject it with disdain, but they hear his voice and they follow him. Not themselves, not some other mighty one, but they follow him. Satan has always been after the seed. Mark 4, verse 15. These then are the ones by the wayside where the word is sown. And when they hear, Satan comes immediately and takes away the word that was sown in their hearts. We can see it Genesis 3:15. Yahweh says, "And I put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. He shall crush your head, and you shall crush his heel." We see the enemy after the seed from the very beginning. If the seed has been planted in you, he does not want it to take root, deep root, and produce fruit. He wants to drag you away. And he's going to use those who reject the seed with disdain. One of the means he's going to use. Revelation 12, verses 3 and 4. And another sign was seen in the Shemaim, and see a great fiery red dragon having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns on his heads. And his tail draws 1/3 of the stars out of the Shemaim, and throws them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was about to give birth, wants to eat the seed alive, to devour her child as soon as it is born. If you have the seed of Yahweh planted in your heart, and it is on good soil, and you are spreading the word, the seed of Yahweh, he'd like to eat you alive. Psalm 139, verses 19 through 24. Oh, that you would kill, slay the wicked, O Elohim, the Rasha, the wrong as opposed to the righteous. The two groups we see in Sodom and Gomorrah, Malachi 3, Psalm 1. There will be judgment between the wrong and the righteous, the Rasha and the Zedekiah. Depart from me, therefore, ye men of bloodshed. Turn away from connecting me to the head that you're connected to. I don't want any part of it. Depart from me, you workers of lawlessness. This is the epitome of those who reject the seed with disdain. They are out to kill the seed that is within us. They were out to kill him. They hated him. We are no different. If they hated him, they hate us. If they persecuted him, they're going to persecute us. Depart from me, therefore, ye bloody men, men guilty of shedding innocent blood. Such particularly are anti-Messiah and his followers, who deserve to have blood given to them to drink because they have shed the blood of the set-apart ones. These and such as these, the psalmist would have no company or fellowship with, was not a companion with them. Verse 20 here I found to be quite an interesting verse, as it starts out, for they speak against you wickedly. I'm reading from the King James. They devise a plan of action. We see in the scriptures it says, bring your enemies to naught. However, in looking at the King James, we see that it says, thine enemies take thy name in vain. Thy name is not there actually in the scriptures or in the King James. So we see that I think a better rendition, after looking at this, it should say, thine enemies, their dark men, lift themselves up with empty words and actions. Verse 21, and I'm going to continue to read from the King James. Do not I hate, turn away from the seed they are filled with, which takes me away from El, my strength? Do not I hate them, O Yahweh, that hate the ones that turn away from his seed, Yahweh himself, that actually gives the strength? Do I not hate them, O Yahweh, that hate thee? And am I not grieved, consider little or no account those that rise up against thee? And that's why I say the verse above it should be these enemies lift themselves up with empty words and actions, because they're not lifting themselves up in the words and actions that will be caused by the implanted seed of Yahweh. They are not shining forth with his words and his actions. And am I not grieved with those that rise up against? They are not going to raise you up in that day. Yahweh is. They will actually go down into the lake of fire for rising up against the seed. Verse 22. I hate them with a perfect hatred. This perfect hatred is a boundary. It's the ends of the whole. If there were ever a book written on boundaries, it should be about this. I count they exist, Hayah, as my enemies, and I defend against them. Verse 23, search me, O Elohim, and know my heart. Try, examine, test, try, scrutinize, to see if I am effective to be chosen. Try me and know my thoughts. We saw in Micah 4 that they didn't know his thoughts. Verse 24, and see if there be any wicked way in me, and guide me to the place of rest after this long journey. Lead me in the way, the direct, the path back to the tree of life. Lead me in the way everlasting. If this sounds like you, I would beseech you to search out and seek with your whole heart the word, the seed of Elohim. And for those of you that are in the body of Messiah, it's just that easy for them to drag you away. I would beseech you and beg you the same thing, to seek and search the word with your whole heart. Just as I moved from Nebraska to Idaho, I moved from one time rejecting the seed with disdain to now having it planted on good soil. So can you too. Move in one direction or move in another.